Yeah, welcome guys to another episode of Tech School. If you're tuning in on YouTube or whether it's live or you're watching the recording, feel free to give us a like, comment, subscribe. Every sort of interaction we get with videos like this, whether it's a like or whether you're leaving your thoughts in the comments or something like that, allows this video to reach more people. So that like or that comment that you leave is a great way to kind of give back to the community because it might allow this video to be seen by a startup who really needed to hear the message, right? They might be running through some problems in tech, and Monal might have shared something to really help them get through that. So if you have a chance, feel free to do that, and I will hand it on over to Curling.
Thanks, Mo. Thanks, Stephen. Mono, you've always came back and always talked to our groups. You made sure you always kind of give back part. So I'm so glad with all your success, still having time for the cohorts and things of that nature. For most people, you actually have this kind of very distinct way of presenting, and I was talking to some founders yesterday who said, "Oh, tell Mono I said hi." One was Ito, and he would say like, "I really like Mono because he's actually always very straightforward. He actually tells you how it is." And I think that's probably one way of just saying that you as a founder, it's very unique, right? Having a founder that actually knows AI and machine learning and actually at the same time knowing business and leadership. So thanks for coming on. I have this nice little bio. It says that Mono is an entrepreneur, engineer, inventing products to help people reach their potential, which I think EVT does that in a lot of ways. It's one thing I like about it is that Mono's stories. I hope Mono talks a little bit more about his story on why he started it. But Education Vision Technology, EVT, is an AI-enabled edtech startup that is transitioning university courses online during the pandemic. So I know you've grown a lot just because of the pandemic. People really need this type of online service. So yeah, thanks Mono for coming on, and maybe you can tell a little bit more about yourself, and you can maybe now you can kind of share your screen too.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me. So my name is Monal Parmar, CEO and CTO of Educational Vision Technologies. EVT uses artificial intelligence to rapidly create online courses which are equitable, effective, and efficient. So I'm going to just start by doing, I guess, presenting the beginning of my company's pitch deck, and then we'll jump into questions from there. So due to the pandemic, universities have to shift all of their courses online. From a survey from this past spring, they found that 63% of college students said that their online lectures are worse than in-person lectures. This is from the research firm Simpson Scarborough. And it's estimated that enrollment this academic year will drop by 15% and 25% for international students, causing U.S. universities a $23 billion revenue loss. Currently, there's kind of two ends of the spectrum when it comes to online courses. They have high production, expensive courses, such as courses that you can find on Coursera. They take up to a year to create, and they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. This causes them to not be scalable, so you can only really create a small amount of courses. On the other end of the spectrum, you have classes that are very quick to make, very cheap, but they're very ineffective. It's just like as we're currently in a Zoom call, that's the predominant way that universities are currently facilitating their online courses. So it's very scalable, but it's not very effective for learning. So that's where EVT comes in. EVT is extremely scalable, and using artificial intelligence, we're able to create extremely effective learning. EVT rapidly creates high quality online courses at 100 times less cost than studios. We offer two products, the EVT learning system, which is a a device which goes in the classroom. It transforms an in-person lecture into a lecture on the EVT web platform for students to use to learn. We have EVT Bloom, where customers can upload their Zoom recordings from Microsoft Teams, or any presentation video. We enhance it using our AI to put on the EVT web platform. The EVT board platform, it captures all of the boards in a classroom and uses artificial intelligence to generate notes from the board writing. So students don't have to write every single thing down in class. If you click on any of the writing, it will take you to the point in the video when the presenter wrote that on the board. It also generates a searchable speech transcript. It requires no effort from the instructor, and EVT transforms just a normal in-person presentation into an engaging online learning experience. For slide-based classes, we take the presentation, break it into smaller video segments, and make it so that each slide is playable. So if reading slides is enough, you can start the presentation at that point in time to get the full context. It's as efficient as a PDF, but has a depth of information of video. And we also can embed the presenter into their own slides to make it more engaging. EVT is the best way to view a presentation online. We have a highly scalable business model. For the learning system, we have a base subscription of $6,000 per room per year. And that's for 100 hours. At $12,000 per room per year, you can create unlimited amount of courses within that room. We have an 80% gross margin on that product. For EVT Bloom, base price is $1,500 for a subscription of 25 hours. And we have a tiered system where we continually offer discounts the larger volume of hours you purchase. At $4,500, you get 100 hours annually. And we have a 90% gross margin on the EVT Bloom cloud service. We're entering the global lecture capture market, and that will lead us into entry into the global e-learning market. Together, these are both very fast growing, and combined they're a $400 billion market. It's expected to be a $400 billion market by 2027. So the global lecture capture market is blowing up. It's growing at 30% compound annual growth rate over the next 7 years. And it's going to jump from 3.8 billion to 24.6 billion, which is extremely fast growth. The global e-learning market is just shy of doubling in the next 6 years. So, we're entering the lecture capture market, but because the quality of our lectures that we generate are high quality, we're able to also take the same material we generate from lecture capture market and sell them into the e-learning market. So that's as far as the presentation. That's to save room for questions, I'm just gonna stop at this point. But yeah, this is EVT. We have a huge opportunity ahead of us, very novel technology to really support universities to create high quality online courses that provide their students with a better learning experience. And it's all AI enabled.
Thanks, Mono. I wanted you to show your pitch deck because the team's working on their pitch deck too, right? I know even Trifty did a revision, and everyone initially was working on their pitch deck. So I wanted them to see yours since you've raised money and you're doing good. So thanks for showing that. Did you have a thank you slide, Mono, on that? Did you have one do you have at the end? And it says your information or no?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just gonna keep that up, and then we definitely had some questions. And I feel like Stephen, way we can actually do it. We'll put priority on the cohort. So if I think the cohort did put some things on the chat. I believe Vivian had the first one too. But yeah, keep that up there for a little bit, and then at least we'll have that information. You know what? I think this is a great one. Brianna's is kind of like falling in line a little bit with what we were actually already saying. But I think the one thing is that she was saying, where did the idea of EBT come from, Mono? And like maybe that story in that way. And other founders was asking me that too. Where did that actually come from on that part, the story of EBT?
So the idea for EBT came to me while I was sitting in class at my junior college. It was a physics class, and I was having a difficult time taking notes and understanding the concepts. And I wish that there's something that could take notes for me so that I can pay more attention, or better pay attention, and understand the concepts. So that was in junior college. And then when I went to UCSD, I realized that, oh, you could build an automated note-taking system using the most state-of-the-art techniques in computer vision and artificial intelligence. So that's kind of how it started. It's grown way beyond just the automated note-taking system. But yeah, it's the initial idea came from just, having a problem and wanting to solve it. But, before we did any development, I interviewed 120 plus students, interviewed 30 professors, administrators, and learned about the decision-making unit for purchasing in higher education. So, it's before did any development, went through the whole customer discovery process, and of course, once we had initial validation, continued talking with customers to learn about their needs and behaviors. So yeah, that's kind of how we started.
No, that's great. We have another question. This is from Vivian. And Vivian, if you want to just you could speak. You can go off mute and just ask me that question. It's a good question.
Monal, my question was, did you have to throttle scaling to avoid catastrophic success? With so many different components, were you worried like one would get ahead of the other as you were scaling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act. So there's the whole machine learning side of things, then there's the web side of things. And then within web, there's multiple stakeholders. There's students, professors, administrators, IT staff that you need to have web interfaces for. And then there's a whole device side of things. So it's, we initially got the machine learning to a point where it was like, it's not fully automated, but like, it's like good enough for now. So it's like, what's good enough for now? And then what's really like V1, V2, V3, and then like, when will we have V2? Like, those are all really important decisions. It's pretty tricky, like as far as like, balancing all of them, because there's definitely a lot of things that could be unforeseen. You could have, with hardware, you could have driver issues, you could have unreliable hardware, and things that like are out of your control. It's like a manufacturer issue. And so it's definitely like, it's like, how do you know that you're the manufacturer for your hardware component, the manufacturer just has a bug in their driver? Like it's like, stuff like that is, makes things a lot more difficult. But it's, I guess one thing that I've, approaches to kind of balancing things is to try to go for breadth first. So have like the most minimal version of everything, but like having a full system. So that way you can just have a more of a full picture of like everything. And then once you have like a super minimal version of like web, super minimal version of device, super minimal version of like machine learning, and you can even skip something. So it's like, okay, instead of machine learning, let's have a human power the intelligence for the the human do the work that the AI would normally do, just so we can get feedback faster. So trying to do breadth first. And then as far as like scaling, it's when we had our first users, it was definitely taxing because there's a lot of human work involved initially, a lot of human work. And then over time, it's more automation, things are more reliable. So that means there's less need for human hours. But that definitely slowed down engineering, because if you have your engineering team working to provide the service, like they're not developing so that they could reduce the time needed to create the service. So it's, I think in our pilot last year, we probably brought on a little bit too many customers in our pilot. It's one of those things where it's like, you feel the pressure to like have more customers, bring in revenue, but we did turn down some paying customers during our pilot last year, but it's hard. It's like someone's offering you money, and you're like it's hard to say no. Like it's so that's but, and it's also one of those things where it's like you think that, oh, it looks more impressive because our pilot generated more revenue. I think that it's like, as long as you're, the way that you can kind of, not over tax yourself with the pilot is by just like saying, our objective from this pilot is to validate that this market segment is receptive, and to like get feedback from customers on to better tune the product for their needs. And then we're gonna evaluate the pilot based on like satisfaction surveys and verify that this solution fills this need that consumers are willing to pay for. And so like, as long as you, I think, can showcase that story that this pilot was used for this type of validation. It's like, if the revenue is like, $20K or $40K, or like it's, that, like, that's still, it's, I don't think that's the biggest thing, is like how much revenue you had in their pilot. Just like, did you really hit your, did you really validate the things that you set out to validate? So that's, I think, how you can help from overtaxing yourself. And there might be people who might not understand that. There might be people who are like, oh, you only generated this much revenue in your pilot. And it's like, we didn't set out to maximize things. We set out to validate this, to show market generalizability. And, this is, and if someone doesn't understand that, then they probably aren't a great investor for you.
And that's a great thing, Mona. I like how you actually said that, because you got to make these kind of tough decisions. Sometimes I actually think is like what we were talking about. We just really want your first 5 to 10 customers to love you, right? You'll need to have 100 people that like you. So just by making sure that you were focusing on those first few customers, making sure they had what they need, I think you did the right thing, and that's good for the cohort to kind of understand how to choose, right? Steven, I know you had some questions too for Monal from the cohort.
Yeah, so we have a few questions, Curling and I have gotten. So you might have dove into this before in your answer to those last 2 questions, but did you run into any challenges trying to use cutting edge technology like AI, machine learning to build a product, right? And if so, what were some of those challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So on the AI side, there's a whole bunch of problems that we had to solve. It's, a couple of approaches to that is initially just have humans in place of the AI for like, okay, so what can humans do, and what, so like what's okay right now for humans to do, and what would be helpful, like what minimal things can, what's the quickest things we can have AI or some algorithms do. And then that's important. Then also seeing like, okay, what's out there, knowing what's out there. Because if someone has code you can just download and use, like that's great. That saves you development time. But you know, it's also important to kind of understand how things are improving. So one example would be let's say speech recognition. So speech recognition, that's a huge problem, and it's like it costs a lot of money to create your own speech recognition models. So that's something that's like not very you know, it's not a good problem for a startup to tackle. So that's something you might just want to outsource. And that's another thing. It's like, what do you want to outsource? And then for things that are open source, like what is the speed of improvement in that area? So speech recognition, you know, we were monitoring open source speech recognition projects over time to see how their accuracy increased over the years. And we saw that, you know, at some point it's gonna hit an accuracy that is sufficient for us to use instead of using outsourcing it. So knowing what problems to solve yourself, knowing when to solve them, it's, you know, those are all the ways to more effectively use your resources. Challenges, like it's being crafty around like data. It's like, okay, if you need data to train certain models, it's like, where can I get the data? Can I like, is data out there? Do I need to collect it myself? Ideally, you don't collect it yourself and you can find it somewhere. So like, you know, one thing that we did is initially, instead of, you know, recording all these lectures and classes in classrooms, we just downloaded a whole bunch of videos from YouTube and other websites to start doing prototyping work on. It's, you know, the videos, it was enough to get us started. So it's like, you know, is there some data that's available that I can immediately start testing things on?
Yeah, thank you. Those are all good points. I know, you know, we've worked with a number of startups that have tried to use cutting edge technologies, AI and machine learning, right? Those are big ones, to try to solve problems. And, you know, at some point you get into, you know, uncharted territory, right? Or you're facing problems. Let's say if you are not an expert in AI or machine learning, then sometimes you run into stuff and you just don't know where to go from there, right? And so that's one of the things that Curling and I have run into with, you know, a number of startups we dealt with Fokcus, is, okay, how do you approach stuff like that, right? And I think you presented a pretty good roadmap for that. So thank you. Another question we had, I know it's San Diego Startup Month, so you know, there's a lot going on in terms of the startup space in San Diego. So I know you guys, you know, at EVT were built, you know, as a startup in Southern California. Was there any advantages that you found, you know, in the startup community, you know, building something, you know, down in San Diego or in that area?
Yeah. Talent. So, you know, our office for first couple of years was located at UC San Diego. So this is I guess this is a bit more on a university front than Southern California, but you know, being housed at a university or recruiting talent from a university provides a huge competitive advantage, because you know, there's students who want experience and there's startups who need to, you know, get the ball rolling and, you know, don't have a lot of capital. And so leveraging, I guess, you know, I guess the Southern California piece is that, you know, there's great schools in Southern California, SDSU, USD, UCSD, and then San Marcos. And so like, there's all these great schools, and they have, you know, some of them have programs. I know that at USC, there's the Engineering 599.
Yeah, 577. You're right. One of our
577, there you
cohorts is using it. Yeah, good.
So they basically, the classes provide you with students, master students, undergrad students who can help develop technology, help develop your technology. So recruiting from these schools, I think, is extremely helpful because, you can have 5-10 engineers working on your startup, and, they want experience. So I think that's pretty big. And there's a lot of solid engineers in San Diego. So the talent is really, really strong. There's a lot of companies that are creating campuses in San Diego because there's such strong engineering talent here. Um, uh, there's a lot of programs in San Diego, such as Tech Hire, where they'll pay for an intern for a month or two. And there's a few different programs like that. So it's, the city of San Diego will pay for an intern for 2 months. And so that really helps because with growth. So if you have this, without increasing your burn rate, you can have over the summer a few extra interns. And so that allows you to develop faster. In San Diego, the community is very supportive. It's, most people I think are willing to meet with you. And it's I think it's a very collaborative community that, just really wants everyone else to succeed. There's a lot of people who want to kind of have San Diego be the place for startups. And I think that's why, and I think it's just Southern California. I think it's a little bit nicer vibe, than some places.
That's great, Mono. I'm glad you touched on Tech Hire because we were talking about that earlier during the cohort meeting. Sunny saying, as look, people are actually in our cohort looking at that Tech Hire program. We can maybe go deeper into that, maybe your experience in that later. But we did get a question from Brianna. Brianna, did you want to just unmute yourself and you can answer that? I was going to ask you that question too.
Gotta unmute myself. So for someone who is not familiar with engineering terminology, what concepts should they understand in order to start a software company? What are the most commonly used types of terminology that you guys use to start?
Yeah, definitely. So it's having managed engineering team for a couple of years, it's like what's the intended outcome? What's the intended outcome? What do you want to make? And that's so I think that you can manage an engineering team. You can manage an engineering team without being an engineer. I think that's it's I guess the piece is to understanding the order of what should be made first, what should be done first, and in what order. I think that's the most important thing, and you don't necessarily need to understand all of the low-level details to be able to prioritize things. I guess it depends on what type of product it is, and I'd say so if it's web for example, just knowing that there's a back end, there's a front end, there's back end, front end. And those are really the two main components of a website. There's that's software wise, and then there's a server. There's there's databases, and so like just really understanding those, just a few key things of like, okay, the front end is what the user interacts with. The user basically can have input which can update fields in the back end, and just understanding like the abstract, very high level of, you know, how that the kind of the architecture of your product, whatever area it is. Like I think that's like probably the most valuable thing to know. So yeah, it's like, and if you kind of understand that at the highest level, it's, you know, you should, that's a really good starting point. Beyond that, like it's just knowing kind of like, if you're managing kind of a front end team, then just knowing from what frameworks they're using, how are things kind of structured? Is it how are things structured? So that way, you know that, okay, this thing probably needs to be built before this thing. And it's, yeah, it's, I think that it's, it could be a little bit challenging, but I think, yeah, as long as you kind of understand the high level components of that domain, then, you know, you should be able to manage an engineering team.
Yeah, and give that context, Mono. Brianna got accepted to the UFC 577 program. So she got a few engineers now, like 5+. And so her being non-technical, or anyone being non-technical, some of those things. So that's really good, just learning those little high-level components. I like how you actually said at the front and back end. We actually got a question on from another founder, Sunny, about tech hire, right? I know you hired a few tech hires for EBT. One is very specific. Do they give you any extension with your tech hire if they didn't finish their project? Or that's the question that Sunny had.
Yeah. So there's two different programs that we participated in. There's I believe tech hire is it's about 1 month. Tech hire is about 1 month, and then there's another program which is 240 hours. 240 hours. So that's about a month and a half full time. It's beyond that initial tech hire period. They do have continuous training funds, so they'll basically pay 50% of the compensation, 50% of compensation for a couple of months. But you need to enroll them in that continuous training program that's part of tech hire. There's for tech hire, you can one thing that we've done is we've hired from boot camps. So there's like Learn Academy, which is a web development boot camp. And in order to graduate from the boot camp, you need to do a 1 month internship at a startup. So it's up to the startup to decide if it's if there's any financial compensation. Most startups in that program just have unpaid internships. We usually do an unpaid internship with a small stipend. And so one thing we've done is just the Learn Academy internship for a month, and then possibly beyond their Learn Academy internship, have them continue that for a little bit, and then put them through tech hire. So like you could structure it so it's Learn Academy 1 month internship, and then if they beyond that, if they agree to doing continue an unpaid internship for a certain amount of time, and then have tech hire start after that, then you could probably extend it off to 3 months if you did like learn, then just a normal standard unpaid, then tech hire, or you could tech hire and then just let them know that, hey, we expect to be able to bring you on at this point in time. But there's this, a few months where we can't, it's not feasible for us to bring you on, but if you're willing to do unpaid internship, so that's a conversation you can have with interns that you get through that program.
No, that's great. That's a great question, Sunny, especially that one of the advantages of being in Southern California, having those tech hire pieces. Stephen, did you have any other some other questions from the cohort?
I had one other question, just to pose to Monal, that we tend to ask a lot of our speakers. So, Monal, imagine you had a chance to talk to your younger self, kind of before at the early stages of your startup journey, right? So, kind of in those initial stages as EVT was kind of in its inception. Given what you know now, right, the knowledge and experience, everything you've faced, kind of, bringing EVT into what it is today, is there one or two tips that you would kind of give your past self, given everything you know now?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think I guess the two pieces are to not be actually there's a whole bunch I'll tell myself. Initially I had, I guess, going into like a management role, that was kind of difficult for me, because it was kind of strange for me. It was it's like, why am I telling this person to like what they should be doing? Like that just felt kind of strange to me initially. So I had to really like take ownership of that. Like, I am the project lead, and I like have a full 360 view, and so it's I can make the in many cases I do have all the information and the insight to make the best decisions on how we should move forward, and so like really taking ownership of that was a bit difficult for me, and that's like a specific thing that I had. Another piece is knowing when to knowing that like you can make it happen. You can make it happen. Not feeling that any one person on your team is kind of make it or break it. Like it's one concern I've had was being a little bit too little bit too passive. So I guess struggling in the short term for longer term success. So that could mean that if you fire someone, you're probably gonna struggle more in the next couple of months, but 1 year from now, that's probably you're probably better off in the long term that you fired that person today compared to doing it later. So I guess that fear of like, shit, if I fire this person, we're gonna really be screwed for the next couple of months. Like that's another thing. It's just understanding that in the short term, things can certain decisions will hurt in the short term, but long term, it's it's much better off to do. And then I guess another piece is just really believing in yourself more. It's like there's you could have someone who has 20 years of experience, 20 years of experience advising you to do a certain thing, and they're very, they have a lot of conviction and like, oh, you should do this thing this way. But, there's times where like there's people who are extremely respected who'd advise me to do something a certain way, and that would cause doubts in the way that I think is best to do it. So it's this is like a space that for a startup, you're living and breathing it. You have 360 view. There could be someone who is extremely knowledgeable, who, you could have a better path forward than what they've suggested. And that's something where, and it's also difficult because there could be people who are very, I guess, strong, very opinionated, or have very strong beliefs on like, this is how you should do it. And, there's even people who will be, just kind of make you feel bad for not doing something a certain way that they said, like, it's like, oh, if you don't do it this way, you're stupid, and things like that. So it's just really just ignoring that, and just not letting, if others think that, what you're doing is wrong, or if there's others who think that, you're not going to be successful, or you're doing it the wrong way, even if they're very, respected, or, very successful, just not letting that get to you, and just like moving forward, knowing that like you probably have it, you probably have it right, like it just really believing in yourself. So yeah.
That's great, Monal. You probably seen some activity on the chat saying thanks for being authentic, and I think what tech school we always try to have is founders for founders, right? But you always, at least in a sense, we're always genuine with everybody about all the things that you kind of went through. But I think that is really a credit to your success too, right? I mean, that's why you've been successful, that you've been authentic. So thanks for that. Stephen, any final thoughts? And I was still thinking about trying to do the little one round of networking where we put everybody in rooms. What do you think?
Yeah, we could give that a shot today.
We can do an MVP. We can do an MVP of that.
Sure. Did you have any other questions for Monal Quilling?
No, I was just going to just thank you, Monal, for just always trying to help first, right? I think that's important for the community. I think that's one thing interesting about startup community, that everyone does try to help each other. So I thank you, Monal, for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And one last thing, is Evie there?
Oh yeah, Evie is here. Evie, come here.
Can you show everybody? Can you show everybody Evie?
Evie.
In the new offices.
Evie, come here. Evie.
Evie used to come. Mona was part of our first cohort, but Evie would always come to the cohort meeting. So
there you go.
We've been knowing Evie for a while.
There you go. Oh yeah, another piece of advice. It's having a pet really helps.
That's great.
Yeah, there you go. Love my dog.
John, I want to say hi.
Hi, great job. Everybody had a lot of questions. That was a really good one.
It was really good.
Great to see you. And Evie.
And Evie.
And I'll attest to Monal's stress level significantly decreasing after the acquisition of the dog. He's a much happier, more relaxed person after that. Look, she's got hers too.
Yeah, she did.
Nice.
So let me just say one thing. During Startup Month, after every speaking presentation, they always give about 15 minutes. We're going to just do 5 minutes where they pair two people up from the audience. We're going to put you guys in rooms. We'll just pair you up kind of randomly. And if you guys have time, then you guys can just talk about what you heard, or maybe some things, or maybe connect. But this is a kind of this kind of little networking thing that we felt like, oh wow, Start Month has been doing it. It's been my favorite part of the presentations is just talking to audiences afterwards, just for 5 minutes. And so we're gonna do that. Steven's gonna make about a few rooms. I think he's gonna have to make about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rooms. And then we're going to put you guys into them kind of randomly to see how that actually goes in. You can randomly put who goes to Monal. So we're going to start doing this after Tech School. We're just kind of MVPing it. We're testing it out today. But before that, Stephen, did you want to just give your last thoughts or anything regarding Tech School?
Sure. Yeah. Before we get started with our MVP of the breakout rooms today for our cohort and everyone, that tuned in on Zoom, just to echo what the message from the beginning. If you have a chance, if you're watching this, whether it's recorded or you're watching this live on YouTube, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. All the likes, all the comments, interactions we get with videos like this help it push out to more people. So all the stories and the messages that Monal was able to share today, some of them could really help a startup, and that like or that comment that you gave could help that video reach that startup or that entrepreneur that really needed to hear one of those messages. So it's an easy way to give back, and it helps out the startup community. So, but with that being said, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Tech School, and we'll get going on those breakout rooms. Hey everyone, Steven here with Fokcus. Thanks for tuning in today. If you liked the video today, be sure to hit that like button and give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. If you have thoughts and you'd love to share them, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. We love to hear from you guys. We're always looking for feedback on how we can improve and make our videos better, so feel free to leave a comment if you can. And if you'd like to be notified on future videos and future episodes of Tech School, feel free to hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified anytime we post a new video. But as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.